And when I recognized what a huge opportunity this was to help businesses, I doubled down on the research and the study of customer retention and the focus on what should we do from the day someone says, I want to be a customer, up until the day where they are a loyal advocate for our brand.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a very important one. Our guest is the author of Never Lose a Customer Again and a speaker who helps organizations retain their best customers and turn them into raving fans. Joey Coleman, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for having me. And thanks to everybody who's tuned in to listen to our conversation. I am beyond excited to chat, which I know for maybe an outsider thinking about Joey's beyond excited to talk to bookkeepers. Folks, I am, and here's why. This has actually been a pain point for me in my own business and career. I so value the work that a quality bookkeeper can deliver to a business, and I'm excited to help your listeners grow and continue to develop their businesses because I think this is a sweet spot in the business space that has huge potential and huge opportunity.
Well, that is super exciting. Listener, you have an advocate that's going to help.
You do.
I mean, what a surprising moment, Joey, to have you on the podcast. Number one, we're excited to have you just for who you are and what you do and what you stand for. But as well, the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast and Pure Bookkeeping and what we're trying to do is elevate the brand of bookkeepers around the world because we really know the value that it brings to small business owners, medium-sized business owners. When they have a great bookkeeper, game changer. And, you know, this is what makes our communities thrive is when we have businesses thriving, the communities thrive. So Joey, I'm so excited that you're with us on this.
Well, I am thrilled to be here and thrilled to follow in the footsteps of so many of the other great guests you've had. I'm a friend of Michael McAllowitz, and I know you've had him on the show, and I'm a big fan of Michael Gerber and his work. So thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, wonderful. And so, Joey, before we get too far into it, let's introduce you to our listener. Tell us about your story leading up to this point in your career.
Yeah, so my story, I pitch it as having been a very eclectic path. Some will say he, might look at my career and say he has difficulty maintaining focus. But the reality is I've had a wonderful professional career. And I'll give you the highlighted version. So basically, I studied government and international relations in college. I went straight to law school where I studied national security law, litigation, and international law. While in law school and beyond, I had the opportunity to work for the United States Secret Service, for the White House and the Office of Counsel to the President and the Central Intelligence Agency. I then went on to be a small-town criminal defense lawyer. I worked doing business consulting for Fortune 500 companies. I was teaching at the postgraduate level, so think night school, MBA type programs. I had the opportunity to run a division of a promotional products company. I ran an ad and branding agency for 15 years. And for about the last 5 years, I've been a full-time speaker and writer on the topic of customer experience and employee experience, and particularly focused on the idea of retention. So many organizations spend so much time, effort, and money trying to acquire new customers, and very little time, effort, and money keeping the customers that they've already acquired. So my focus for really the last 15 years has been looking at what can we do to create the kind of remarkable experiences that will keep your customers coming back for more and loyal to you. So what's interesting is we look at the entire career, and some people are saying, oh my gosh, how many lives has this guy led already? And how long were each of those jobs? Because he doesn't sound like he's 110 on the phone. Here's the thing. In each of those jobs, the way you succeeded was by having a keen understanding of the human condition. Why do humans do the things they do? And what can we do to convince or persuade or encourage them to take the type of actions that we'd like them to take so that we can deepen our relationship with them? So that's really kind of the background and the lens by which I bring my perspective on business, customer experience, and customer retention.
Wow. I feel like we could have about 60 podcast episodes talking about all the different experiences that you have, but then you bring it into one central point, which is so clear and so powerful, which is we're dealing with the human condition in all aspects of life all the time, because who we deal with are humans. And so
exactly.
I'm excited to share with our listener your take on what you've learned about the human condition and how that's helping companies, many of them that read your work and use your work, never lose a customer again.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I have observed over time is that regardless of the industry you're in, whether you're in bookkeeping or whether you sell auto parts, whether you're a trial attorney or a personal injury lawyer, or whether you sell components for making televisions, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the people who buy your service, who buy your product, are human beings. And the more we study the psychology of humans and the emotions they feel as they initially begin a new relationship and then grow that relationship over time, the more we realize that there are common threads. And these common threads actually transcend borders. I know we've got listeners, I'm here based in the United States. I know we've got listeners in Canada and Australia and all around the world. And I've had the pleasure of working with companies and clients in Canada, a ton of companies in Canada, in Australia, throughout Europe, Africa, Asia. And what I have found is that even though culturally there may be broad differences between those various audiences, there are some fundamental elements that are tied to our human biology as it relates to our emotional reactions and how we build connection that transcend those borders. And so super excited to share some of the things I've learned along the way and some of the things I've seen with my clients, and how hopefully the folks who are kind enough to listen to us and to listen to this conversation have clear action steps they can put into their business right now. Because I believe, Michael, there are three types of speakers. There's speakers who make you think differently. There's speakers who make you feel differently, and there's speakers who make you act differently. And while I certainly want my audiences to think and feel differently after they've had a chance to hear me speak, if you all don't act differently, it hasn't been worth, Michael, having me on the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can get new ideas and new thoughts from a ton of different resources. But in my experience, the things that will propel you to make the change in your business, the things that will propel you to take different actions that will pay off for you and will have an incredible return on investment in both the short, medium, and long term, those are fewer and far between. And so that's really what I strive to provide, and what I'm certainly going to be trying to bring to the table in our conversation today.
Oh, it's excellent, exciting. And having seen you speak, and also the book and content that you put out, you do make people feel and think differently. And as well, your content is so actionable. In fact, we're implementing many of your philosophies inside of our company. And that's how, without even doing any work outside of your book and hearing you talk and what's available online, we're able to make it and change things inside of our business. So I'm excited about delivering your promise to our listener today. And with customer retention, I mean, one of the questions that came up for me in hearing your past is, how did customer retention, because with human condition, I mean, you could be helping people in just about every aspect of business, I would think. What was it about customer retention that drew you to that and had you become a world leader in that space?
Well, I think it really comes down to the fact that customer retention is such a big piece of every business that gets talked about very rarely, right? There are lots of businesses and business speakers and conferences and books that are devoted towards getting customers. And in fact, if you were to go on Amazon right now and you were to search for the keyword sales in the category of books and write down how many hits you got, and then you were to erase that result and you were to type in the keyword marketing and write down how many hits you got, and you were to add those two numbers together, you would get right at about 1.2 million books that have been written on how to get a customer. If you were then to erase those results and to type in the phrase customer retention and write down how many hits you got, customer service, customer experience, account management, relationship management, lifetime value of the customer, all the phrases that you could imagine to talk about what happens after the sale. And you were to add all those numbers together, recognizing that some of them would overlap in their results, but you were to add all those numbers together, you would get barely 30,000 books. And so what that tells us is, at least in the category of books, which is, I think, a decent proxy for how much people are paying attention to these topics, there are 43 books written on how to get a customer before there is one book written on how to keep a customer. And that's just shocking to me, Michael. And I have seen, and I've experienced it in my own businesses that I've run over the years. You know, we over-index on the chase. We over-focus on how do we market, how do we sell, how do we get more people to be aware of us, how do we get more people to try working with us, how do we get more people to sign the contract, instead of focusing on taking care of the people who've already raised their hands and said they want to be in relationship with us, taking care to develop and deepen long-term relationships that will keep buying our services or our products in the weeks and months and years to come. And when I recognized what a huge opportunity this was to help businesses, I doubled down on the research and the study of customer retention and the focus on what should we do from the day someone says, I want to be a customer, up until the day where they are a loyal advocate for our brand. And what's interesting is, in most businesses, not all, but in the majority of businesses, that all happens in the first 100 days of the relationship. And so if you can get the first 100 days right, you can have a customer for life.
It's really remarkable, and I would say that this conversation is the road less traveled, and yet it's the road, if traveled, is what has companies be stronger, have more lifespan. And, you know, it's like that old story of the marshmallow study where, you know, people, it's like, if you sure. Eat your marshmallow right now, you get one. If you wait, you get two. Most eat the marshmallow out of the gate, but the ones who waited, they turned out to be more successful folks down the track because they didn't want that instant gratification. They were willing to invest in the future. And this is about investing in the future, which is exciting. So, you know, how does our listener, what's the first thing that they need to start thinking about in terms of their own first 100 days of having their customer join them?
Well, I think the first place, the place where we want to start, Michael, is having a clear understanding of what your current customer or client journey looks like. Now, a lot of companies, a lot of business owners have heard this concept of the customer journey or the client journey. The problem is, most of the writing and the research and the teaching on this topic focuses on the journey from when somebody first hears about you up until the point they buy from you and you make the sale. The journey I'm talking about is the journey that starts on day one. And I define day one as the day that the new customer signs their contract. They hire you to be their bookkeeper. They hand over their hard-earned cash and they say, start to deliver on the solution you promised me during the sales process. Start to take care of my books. And that's day one. And I'm talking about the 100 days after that. So what are you doing to introduce a new client to your way of doing business? How are you getting them set up in the systems? How are you creating a workflow and a pattern and a rhythm of interaction with them? How are you addressing the fears and the concerns they have? What is the past baggage that they're bringing to the table that is now your responsibility to work through? And by the way, that can be physical baggage of, oh my gosh, I haven't had a bookkeeper in 5 years and I need you to catch up on all of my records that are in shoeboxes from the past, or their emotional baggage of, I had bookkeepers in the past that didn't do a good job, and here was the consequence, and it was stress, and it was angst, etc. Or it could be practical baggage and emotional baggage combined. And let's be candid, I imagine for most of your listeners, that is the reality of a new client experience. So the first thing we need to do is map the journey that our clients are currently having in those first 100 days. And what I've found doing this with hundreds of thousands of business owners around the world, Michael, is that exercise of mapping what the world currently looks like for our customers, that alone gives a business owner an exponentially better insight into their customer or client experience. And you'll begin to see the places where you can automatically start to make improvements. Now, what I will say is that lots of times when we do this exercise, the folks who make the commitment to map out their journey start to feel a tremendous amount of guilt and shame. And the reason they feel that, Michael, is they look and they say, how didn't I focus on this before? How did it get that bad? And what I'd love to do is absolve you of your sins, listeners. I'd like to absolve you of your
I feel better already.
Your pain,
I feel better
right?
already. Yes.
Because here's the thing. What this shows is that you are like every other business owner in the world. You started out by creating a business. I'd be willing to imagine that you wanted to create a business that would help other people do a better job of keeping their financial records and keeping their books. You recognized a need in the marketplace. You recognized a skill set that you had, and you wanted to marry your skill set with the need that was in the marketplace. And when you had just one client or one customer, you took tremendous care of them. You were regularly in contact with them. You were looking out for them. You knew their business inside out. You could spot trends that were happening. You could help them navigate the highs and the lows of running a business. You were incredible at serving them. So much so that you got a second client and a third and a fourth and a fifth. Well, now you started to get so many clients that you didn't have your finger on the pulse of their business as much as you did with that first client. Why? Not because you're a bad person, but because your attention was diffused across several different clients. So maybe you hired a part-time bookkeeper to come on staff and work with you, and then another one and another one. And you got further and further away from having your finger on the pulse. This is a consequence of success and growth. So if you are in a place right now where you feel after doing that client journey assessment that you don't have the connection and the understanding and the insight into your individual clients the way that you would like to, take some comfort in the fact that that means you've actually been successful because you've grown past more than one client. Now, the reality, however, is if you want to be successful in the future, if you want to get out of the rat race of constantly needing to find new clients to backfill the clients who have decided to stop working with you, you've got to make the change. And you've got to shift your mindset and your philosophy for doing business from a place of how do I get more to a place of how do I go deeper? How do I connect in a more meaningful way to the clients I'm already serving. Because when you do that, two magical things happen. Number one, they become loyal and committed to you. In my book, I talk about this as the adoption phase. They become so committed to you that they're not going to take their bookkeeping anywhere else other than you. And number two, they become advocates. They come to love you and your business and the work you do for them so much that they can't help but refer you to their friends and family and colleagues. So what ends up happening is by focusing on keeping our customers, we actually build long-term customers who are our uncompensated, uncommissioned marketing program and sales program, because they are bringing qualified candidates to us on a regular basis. And I don't know about you, Michael, but I've yet to meet a business owner in bookkeeping or any other industry who said to me, Joey, I'm all good on referrals. I don't need any more. I'm all filled up. I don't want it. No, everybody would love more qualified referrals. And how do you get those? Well, you make the investment in the relationships with the people you already have so that they are compelled to bring you more business.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's hearing you speak about this. It's what's going on in my mind is just like it's racing with opportunity. And I mean, you mentioned the guilt. I mean, looking at our own as we're going through your book, Never Lose a Customer Again. We're thinking about our business. We're starting to map that all out. And you're absolutely right. It's like, how are we not, there's one thing I identified where, we don't send that many pieces of communication after someone's become a customer, because I think in my mind, it was like, I didn't want to bother them or annoy them. But the perspective when I think about it is like, they maybe think I'm ignoring them, not annoying them. And it's just something so simple, yet it's out of the periphery. As you say, in the early stages of business, we're trying to find new customers and grow the business. We're not thinking about taking care of the people that we have. So it did cause guilt and shame. But then at the other side of it, it's also this idea of what's possible. And if we just change a few little things, how we can improve the experience greatly by just a few little things and what that can do for our business.
Absolutely. And Michael, you are so right. Lots of times when people first hear me talk about this, they're like, oh my gosh, Joey, I get it. I need to do this in my business, but how much is it going to cost? There's no way I can afford this. There's no way I have the time or the dollars to invest to make this happen. And here's the thing. The ideas, the changes in your business that will move the dial the most, that will have the biggest impact on the lifetime value of your customer, on the longevity of your customer, on the referrals that you will get from your clients going forward, does not require a huge amount of dollars, does not require a huge amount of time or effort. What it requires is first and foremost a shift in mindset. And then secondly, a committed, consistent effort to do the little things that have the greatest impact. I want you to work smarter, not harder. I want you to focus on being more efficient and more effective instead of, well, what is the enormous investment or activity we can do? And what's amazing is all the research and all the case studies and all the consulting work I've done with clients and the coaching work I've done with clients consistently prove out that the little things have the biggest impact. And so there are dozens, if not hundreds of little things that you can do within the next 30 days of listening to this podcast that will begin to move the needle. And you will begin to see results that, in my experience, going back to our conversation of the human condition, when humans feel progress, it is a lot easier to ask them to do more. Take this to a context of a diet or getting healthier or working out. Those first few days and weeks, it's hard to see progress. But once you start to see progress, you begin to feel momentum. And when you feel momentum, if you can accelerate, if you can continue to be consistent, these things will start moving with an energy that is their own. And the results will start coming in a way that will generate additional revenue for you to hire more people to help you with this, that will generate additional referrals, that will allow you to have more resources to bring to bear on continuing to double down. And it becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy that it feeds itself. The more you do, the more results you will have, which will allow you to do even more for your clients.
Really starting with the small things is going to lead people to really having a shift, a massive shift in their business. And you mentioned one action already, which was mapping out that current process. And I do remember, I haven't downloaded the templates from your book, but your book does come with templates, I think, on how to do some of this. Is that correct?
Absolutely. When I was writing the book, Michael, there are two schools of thought to writing a book. One school of thought is you write the book and you give them 70% of what they need with the hope that they come hire you to get the other 30%. The other school of thought is you write the book to be the blueprint. You give them everything you got. And to be candid, that's the approach I took. So much so that my publisher came back to me, and I had a great relationship. I have a great relationship with my publisher, Portfolio Penguin. They came back to me with the book, and the book was 320 pages long. And they said, Joey, we need this book to be shorter. Okay, you're asking people to read 320 pages. This is a tome. It's just too much. I said, great, guys. You tell me which parts you'd cut. 2 weeks later, they came back and said, we can't find anything that we want to cut. I said, great, then I guess we're moving forward with the full book. My goal was to give the folks who were willing to invest in purchasing my book, to give them the blueprint that would help them navigate their business forever. Because here's the thing, Michael, after you map your journey and you make the enhancements, a year or two later, it's time for you to go back and remap the journey. Because guess what? You put new things in process that are different. They're having a different effect on your audience. The landscape has changed. My goodness. I mean, we're recording this podcast, in October of 2020. The last 7 months have completely changed the landscape for the planet with COVID-19. And so what's interesting is the same things that worked before the pandemic to retain your customers still work, but more organizations have realized just how thin and how fragile their customer relationships were as a global pandemic ravaged the economy, the emotional state, the physical interactions we're having. It called a lot of things into question. So the goal in writing the book was to create something that people could continue to come back to. And you're right, not only are there 46 case studies in the book of companies small, medium, and large, online and offline, international and domestic, product and service, you name it. I wanted to have an example for everyone. So if they said, but Joe, you don't understand my industry. Well, there's an example that's either in your industry or certainly close to your industry in the book. But also to give people the worksheets and the templates and the downloadables and the prompting questions to help you do this mapping and then come up with creative ideas for enhancing. I gave folks a bunch, but there's also a lot of prompts that will help you come up with your own that are designed to make the experience of doing business with you more remarkable.
Joey, I almost feel bad in saying it, but with the book, I mean, as I mentioned before we got doing the interview, Debbie Roberts, who many of our listeners know and follow and have had on the podcast several times, she read your book and she's become an advocate in our business for the 100 days. In fact, in our HubSpot account, we have a whole section on, it's called the 100 days, right? And we're implementing all of it and all the time. And there's tons of conversations and we've got, it's becoming a part of our company culture. And unfortunately, Joey, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah. Well,
we got this book and I feel bad.
Perfect. No. Don't feel bad. That's music to my ears. You did exactly what I hoped would happen. I hoped that people would be able to read the book and never have to hire me. Now, some people would look at that and they'll say, Joey, That is an absolutely ridiculous way to grow a business. You basically have worked yourself out of having clients. Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, if I give you a book that is the blueprint that allows you to double, to triple, to 5x your business, will you speak kindly about my book? Will you write reviews of my book? Will you buy copies of my book to share with your team members, to gift to your clients? Will you sing my praises? Yes. So I'm creating adopters. And advocates. I don't need to milk every dollar of revenue from every person who does business with me. But what I do need to do as a business owner is create an experience that is so incredible, that is so fulfilling, that is so remarkable, that you can't help but say good things about what it was like to be exposed to my work or my message. So I'm trying to practice what I preach of playing the long game. I'm not interested in how many books I sell next month. I'm interested in, when they close the coffin on my casket, how many people did I impact? And the way I can impact more was, I realized early on, Michael, that I love speaking, I love being on stage, I love spreading the message, but I am limited by the number of people who can be in front of me. By writing a book, by doing podcasts, I can propel my mission, which is to raise the bar on customer experience, because let's be candid, the bar for customer experience globally is lying on the ground. I can raise the bar better by packaging it up and giving it to as many people as possible, because if they improve their businesses, we all benefit.
Agreed. And you know, my story and our story inside our organization is exactly what you've said. And I would say, you said you're trying to do it. You've done it. And look, I mean, it's our first 100 days with you is in the book, right? And so you're actually delivering your methodology and inside of your book, which we're actually doing, and then we're implementing it inside of our business. So it is really remarkable. It's likely the only book anyone needs to buy on customer retention, and it will last again and again and again. And I mean, when you start to think about the ROI, it's ridiculous. The number, even if we bought 1,000 books from you, the ROI that we would get would still be a multiplication that's ridiculous because of the retention, the customer experience, and for our listener, having referrals go through the roof, and also be great referrals, because when you attract great clients and they're talking about you and they're sharing you with others, they're sharing it with great people like themselves. So you're just generating a fantastic pipeline of wonderful people to come into your business. And so it is remarkable, and I can't speak highly enough about your book and how valuable it is to us and to our organization, and I know so for our listener and as well their customers. You know, when we're able to talk about this and how we're improving our business, well, when our listener does this for their own business, this is just another piece of value that our listener can give to their clients, to their business owners that they work with and have authority with, to say, look, this is an area they're going to see, right? The retention in business, part of the numbers, right? They're going to be able to consult and say, look, this is a book that you should be reading and implementing inside of your book. And even, hey, give it as a gift over the holidays or at a holidays. You know, if you're going to give something nice to your customer, this would be a great book to give them, because the gift that it will give for years into their business would be remarkable. Joy, you mentioned...
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, we love you. We love what you do, and it's making a difference for us, and I know it will for our listener. And so we're really glad you could be on the show. You mentioned a few little things that people could do right out of the gate as a bookkeeping business. And you talked about, I'd love to hear your story of your experience with your own bookkeeper and inside of your organization. But what are some, in your opinion, some of those small things in customer experience that a bookkeeping business owner could take on and do in the first 30 days of a new client experience?
Well, I love it. And, for folks who are kind enough to be listening, let's give a ton of ideas for things they could implement. So let's say you've mapped the journey, you have a clear idea of what you're doing right now. What can you do to enhance the client journey? What can you do to improve the experience your clients are having? I'll give a quick overview of my sordid tales and experiences with bookkeepers over the years, and then I'll dive into a lot of things that they could have done or that others could do going forward to create those kind of experiences that keep clients coming back for more. So like many entrepreneurs, I fall into the category of seeing bookkeeping as a necessary evil. Now, some of the folks listening just got a little offended, and I don't mean to offend you, but I mean to paint a picture for the reality of most of your clients. Most of your clients are going to hire you because they know they need better bookkeeping, but they don't want to do it themselves. And the reality of them not wanting to do it themselves really lies in the fact that they don't really understand how it works. Not only does it seem like a difficult part of their business, but it seems like a part of their business that they don't want to invest their personal time and effort to learn more about. They would rather outsource it to someone else. Now, as a bookkeeper, you could look at that and be offended. Or you could look at that and say, this is a tremendous opportunity. It is an opportunity to serve and an opportunity to solve a significant pain point that the marketplace has. In the bookkeepers that I have hired over the years, and I've had many, it has run the full gambit of people that wanted to teach me how to become a bookkeeper when I had zero desire to learn. People who overpromised on what they would be able to do. Oh, by keeping your books, I'm going to find tons of, opportunity for you to make more money, that never actually delivered on that. People who overpromised and underdelivered. Oh, we'll be able to get everything set up in QuickBooks in a matter of 30 days. And 6 months later, we still weren't where we needed to be, right? Just a host of problems that work in any business and show up in any type of business vendor or business partner or provider scenario, but are exacerbated by the emotional angst that most business owners have around bookkeeping and financials. Most business owners didn't get into business to get really good at Excel spreadsheets, accounting software, data entry, and, financial reporting. They got into business to do the core business that their business is, to be a lawyer, to be a hairstylist, to own a mechanic shop, to own a restaurant, whatever it may be. They didn't get into business for their financial acumen. They got into business for their passion of delivering their product or service. So I think there's a huge opportunity for bookkeepers to acknowledge this reality that you are solving a pain point, and to acknowledge that because you're solving a pain point, the emotional significance of the work you're doing is actually greater than the practical significance. I want to repeat that because it's kind of a nuanced observation, I think. The emotional significance of the service you are providing is greater for your client than the practical significance. They've survived without bookkeeping before they hired you, or they've survived with shoddy bookkeeping. Now, granted, they may have found themselves in an audit situation. They may have found themselves feeling increased angst about not being able to produce the reporting that they needed to for either their tax advisor or the IRS or, revenue service or whoever it may be. But it hasn't stopped them from moving forward. What it has done is created huge stress and emotional angst in their life. So bookkeepers, in many ways, more than any other industry, have an opportunity to speak to the emotional relief that you're providing. So how does that look? Well, in the book, I talk about the 8 phases of the client journey, okay? And the third phase in the client journey is the affirm phase. In common parlance, this is buyer's remorse. Almost everybody listening to the podcast has heard of the phrase buyer's remorse. But I'd be willing to bet that very few listeners have a system and a process in place in their bookkeeping business to address the buyer's remorse that their clients are going to feel. Your clients are going to feel buyer's remorse in the minutes and hours and days immediately following their signing your contract and making their first payment. Now, I know that not because I'm judging the way any of you run your business. I know that because you have humans as your clients. And brain science research tells us that when we make a purchase, we sign up for a new service or a new product, our brain floods with dopamine. We feel joy, euphoria, excitement. This is the bookkeeper who's going to be the answer to my prayers. This is the person that's going to help me get out of the shoebox and into the software. This is the person who's going to help me be more prepared for that audit that I know is coming at some point in the future. This is the person who's going to help me put together the financials so I can go to my banker and get a line of credit or get the investment capital I need to take my business to the next level. But almost immediately as that dopamine floods the brain, it starts to recede. And those feelings of joy, euphoria, and excitement are replaced by feelings of fear and doubt and uncertainty. What if they don't deliver on the promises they made during our sales conversations? What if they don't do a good job of getting my books in order? What if they make mistakes while they're doing the data entry, and now the things I submit to the IRS or Revenue Service come back with errors and it actually triggers an audit? What if all this time and money and investment I've made in delegating this critical responsibility of my business to a third party who, let's be frank, part of the reason I like them is because they like something that I don't understand, i.e. bookkeeping? What if it doesn't work? What if this is the death knell of my business? If we don't acknowledge the emotional delta or the emotional difference between our being back at the office celebrating that we just landed a new client and the reality that our new client is feeling at their office of thinking, oh my gosh, what if I just made the decision that actually destroys my business? If we don't close that emotional gap and close it quickly, it will only grow over time. So how do we address it? Well, very early on in the process, we need to affirm the decision that our client has made to work with us. And folks, it's going to sound simple. It's going to sound trite, but here's the reality. The majority of listeners aren't going to do anything about this. And I'm begging, I'm pleading, I'm imploring you to take action on this. Early on in the process, you need to give your client a feeling of confidence that they made the right decision in hiring you. And one way you can do that is by showing them a level of certainty and a level of enthusiasm for the work you're about to do. So, for example, they sign the contract and they start to deliver the shoeboxes. They start to get the information over to you. Imagine if they received a handwritten thank you note that said, "Dear Steve, I want you to know how much I appreciate you trusting me to keep your books. I am confident based on our conversations that we are going to be able to remove this pain point from running your business. You didn't get into business to manage QuickBooks and Excel spreadsheets. You got in your business to XYZ, and then you fill in what the thing that their business is about. Rest assured that we're going to take great care of you, and know that we are excited to eliminate this aspect of your business concern so you can focus on other things. Sincerely, Sally," whoever it is, sign your name. Folks, this isn't rocket science. It's about letting your clients know that you appreciate them and you're going to take care of them. The handwritten thank you note is probably one of the most powerful tools on the planet to do this. For all of you listeners at home, here's the thing. I can't see you, but this is an audience participation opportunity. I want you to join in. So whether you're driving in the car, whether you're working out right now, whether you're doing the dishes, indulge me, okay? I'm going to ask a series of questions. I want you to raise your hand and physically raise it above your head so that kinesthetically you have an experience of connecting with this idea that we're sharing right now. Raise your hand above your head if in the last year you have received a handwritten thank you note. Now, what's interesting, Michael, is that sound that you just heard is the sound of dozens, if not hundreds of hands being raised all over the world. People who have received a physical thank you note. Now, folks, keep your hands in the air if you still have that thank you note. Now, that sound you just heard is the sound of hands not going down. Yeah, a few of them went down, but the majority of the hands are still in the air. Friends, thanks for participating. You can lower your hands. Here's the thing. The majority of us still have the thank you notes we've received. Why? Is it because we don't want to forget who wrote the thank you note? Is it because we want to read it again because we didn't understand the words in the thank you note the first time? No. The reason we keep the thank you notes is twofold. Number one, it is so rare to receive a handwritten thank you note that it feels like an artifact. It feels like something that we don't want to let go of. We have no problem letting go of postcards and ad campaigns and sales letters because we get those all the time. We don't want to let go of a handwritten thank you note because someone took the time to put pen to paper and write it out and send it to us, and it's very rare that we receive them. Number two, it is physical, tangible proof that we matter. It is proof that another human being felt that you mattered enough that they would take the time to sit down with pen and paper, to write out a personal note to you, to put it in the envelope, to affix a stamp, to take it to the post office, to let the post office have the time to deliver it to you so that you could receive it, open the letter, and read how you made them feel. Read the impact that you had on their life. Read their gratitude and appreciation for who you are as a human. Folks, it sounds easy, but doing it consistently requires a level of commitment that actually pales in comparison to the impact it will have on your business and your life. Because the more gratitude we bring into our life, the better we will feel personally. The more gratitude we express for others, the more they will feel it, and they will begin to have a personal and emotional connection to us. And you can do this before you've delivered the first financials, before you've reached the first 30 days of working together, before you've even set up the account in QuickBooks to keep track of their financials. They can be having an emotional experience with you. I encourage you to give it a try.
So inspiring. One example, but literally the impact, the power of doing that, a phone call, it's just you really... when you talk about and frame it around the emotional experience, it's not about the work they're going to do. You have so much possibility.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. How much does it actually cost you to write a thank you note? Maybe $1 per note to buy the note card, maybe 50 cents to $1 for the postage, and then anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes it will take you to sit down and write a 4 to 8 sentence long note. If that note gets that bookkeeping client to stay 1 month longer than they would have, it's exponentially paid for itself. It's
likely the best paying work they'll ever do in their life.
I agree. In terms of your return on investment of the time and the dollars you spend, the impact this will have on your business and on your relationship with that client, it's why I suggest this in our conversation today. Some people are thinking, geez, we listened all the way to like the 50 minute mark, 50 plus minute mark of this conversation to hear write a thank you note. Yes, because it is singularly one of the most impactful actions you can take in your business. Oh, by the way, let's take it further. So you write a thank you note for them becoming a client. Why not write a thank you note to them after they hit their 6-month anniversary with you? Why not write another thank you note at the 1-year anniversary? Why not go and get a bunch of thank you notes right now? Because some of you are thinking, but Joey, my clients are already past the 100 days. Oh my God, I messed it up in the first 100 days. What do I do now? Go write the thank you note now. Write them for sticking with you. Write them the note that says how much you appreciate their business. Write the note that says, we haven't talked in a while, but man, I am sure that COVID-19 has impacted your business dramatically. I want you to know I'm here for you. I want you to know that if you're sitting at home struggling, figuring out how are we going to make ends meet, how are we going to keep the doors open on their business, you know who'd be a great person to have that conversation with? The person who understands your financials better than you do. I'm available to you. Oh, and by the way, there's no charge for this. Why is there no charge for this? Because you're family. Because you're my client. Because I want to take care of you. Because I have a vested interest in your success, both financially and personally, emotionally. Because I know your business as well as you do. And you start giving. Here's the thing. The way you treat your clients during this pandemic will be remembered after the pandemic. The way you treat your clients during this pandemic will guarantee that you have clients after this pandemic. And the reality is, almost every client who has decided throughout time to stop doing business with you made that decision because you didn't prioritize them. I'm sorry to speak so bluntly. I'm sorry to make you feel emotionally conflicted or frustrated or angry, either with yourself or with me. But the reality is, if we don't prioritize our clients, someone else will. Another bookkeeper, another accountant, another financial advisor. Someone else put your client's needs higher in the importance zone than you were. And that's why they left. So how do we stop that? We make sure that all of our clients know at all times how meaningful we find the relationship. And I get that it's hard to do. You've been working with a client for 3 or 4 years. You're continuing to produce their quarterly financials. You're doing their reconciliation at the end of the month. Things are working like clockwork. Everything's fine. And all of a sudden, one day they say, you know what? We're not going to renew with you guys. We're done. And you think, what went wrong? I did everything I said I would do. That may be true. But the client didn't feel that way. It may have been the practical reality, but it wasn't the emotional reality. They didn't feel prioritized. They didn't feel important enough. They didn't feel enough of a personal and emotional connection with you. That's all we need to do. All we need to do is focus on consistently delivering a personal and emotional connection with our clients again and again, month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. That's how you find yourself at the end of your career with a business that has grown so much that you have an asset that you can either pass on to family or sell, where you have grown relationships that have added such a deep feeling to your life that your clients are your best friends. And that it's not just lip service in your marketing materials that they're family. They're actually the people who you invite to your child's graduation or your child's wedding or your retirement party. Not because you just invited all your clients to the retirement party, but because you invited the people who had made the most significant impact in your life to come celebrate with you the end of your career. Folks, this stuff doesn't end until you decide it ends. And some of you have decided that the personal and emotional connection ended before it even got started. And that's okay, but let's not do that anymore. Let's start playing the long game. Let's start making the investments that will continue to pay dividends for years and decades to come.
Joey, we're blessed to have you share your knowledge with us. I mean, this is an episode that I know will be one of the most impactful episodes for our listener in their business. Your book is a book that our listener must rush out, get onto Amazon, go to the bookstore, wherever you can, get this book, put it into practice. In fact, Joey, you've done it again. We probably don't even need to buy your book. We would have such an ROI by just doing.
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
And
we don't.
totally fine with me.
We're putting you out of business, Joey, because you're just too good. But this one, one example of many examples that are out there and many examples that are in the book. This one example is literally enough ROI that they wouldn't need to do anything else in their business from a marketing perspective or customer retention perspective. If they just wrote that note, it would make that big of a difference. And so many not doing it would set you out from the competition. So many layers, Joey. And so you started out by talking about speakers that make you think differently, that make you feel differently, and ones that give you action to take into your life and business and make a difference for yourself. Joey, you've scored fully on all three, and not surprisingly, having known you and the work that you do. And I feel blessed for our listener. And so, behalf of all of our listeners, I just thank you deeply for your generosity and giving us all of your knowledge and for, making us think, feel, and giving us the actions to take.
Well, it's my pleasure, Michael. I so appreciate you inviting me to be a guest on your show. I so appreciate all the listeners who gave of their time and attention to listen to the show. And, my hope is that there's at least one or two nuggets that they can take and apply in their business right now. Because as I said at the outset, folks, I want you to succeed. I know how hard you all have worked to get to where you are in your business. And what I can promise you is the time, effort, and energy you spend on doubling down on retention will not only have a tremendous impact on the success of your business, it will actually reconnect you with the reasons you got into business in the first place. My gut instinct is everyone listening to this podcast got into their business with a goal of serving others, with a goal of helping others. Now, some of you were more motivated by the numbers and the financials and making a spreadsheet balance out. Some of you were more motivated by the idea of being able to have an impact in the community you worked in. Some of you were more motivated by the idea of being able to set your own hours and run your own business and live your life the way you wanted to live it. It doesn't really matter why you got into business, but my gut instinct is as your business has grown, you might have become disconnected from those original feelings. Because running a business is hard. There's just no other way to say it. It's hard. And I don't know about you all, but in 2020, it's even harder. I believe that the business owners, especially the small and medium-sized business owners in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, around the world, are the lifeblood of the economy. They are the lifeblood of our society. And by connecting with why you got into business in the first place, you'll be able to serve your clients better. And the more you serve your clients, the more they'll be able to serve their customers and clients. And all boats will rise together. So I so appreciate your time. I appreciate your listening. And I wish all of you the very best as you work to create these kinds of remarkable experiences in the first 100 days and beyond.
Remarkable, Joey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
You can find Joey and learn a whole bunch more about Joey at joeycoleman.com/meet-joey/ Of course, we'll have that in our show notes. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful and inspiring guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.